Going to be if you have a brand new buyer client, you're going to go out for a buyer consultation. You want to have some of your contracts ready. I'm going to go over how to do the definitions of working relationships and the um, exclusive right to buy listing contract. So first, let's navigate CTME here, so you can do your login. So once you get to this screen here coming up next, so you'll have all your clients here. So we got a new client, so let's go ahead and create a new contract. Okay, so first off, in order to have a parent contract and then have the other contracts pull off of that, you'll need the first parent contract, which is going to be the exclusive right to buy listing contract. So let's go ahead and pull that up. Okay, so once we get here, this is going to be, this is basically your buyer agreement. So you'll click buyer agency, depending on whatever you agreed with them. Most likely it's going to be a buyer agency. That's where you'd have the fiduciary duty to your buyer. Transaction broker, it's going to be more of a referee as opposed to a coach as a buyer agency. With HomeSmart, we are a multiple person firm, so we would click that. It's just stating that there's more than one person in our brokerage. So then down here, what we're going to do is we're going to type in our client's name. A lot of times, maybe you don't know exactly their name as it appears, their legal name. It might be Jonathan, or it might be, might use a middle initial. If they've already been pre-approved, you want their pre-approval to be consistent with the name on this particular contract. So if it's Jonathan D. Doe, that's how you want to place it in here. If you don't know just yet, that's okay. Just do it as close as how you know, because you might just get some random people that you are going to go meet, and so maybe you don't know their exact full name, or there might be a nickname that they're using. So that's going to be one of the questions you're going to want to ask them in the when you do the buyer appointment. So and you'll have this kind of open, and you can kind of go over this as you're going over it with them and explaining it to them. You will fill it in, and then as long as you don't sign it, it won't lock, and you can change and alter it as you go. I kind of do that until I get there. And then it should auto-populate your brokerage name, or your brokerage, and then your name. And then property, and then this is important, 3.4, property means real estate which substantially meets the following requirements or is acceptable to buyer. It's going to be, pretty much anything that they're looking for, meeting them, whatever meets their proper criteria, you'll just go over that with them. Let's see, listing period. I tend to do 6 months. It just depends. If you're doing a new build, I would do a year. But today is the 4th, so I'll just go 6 months from there. November, December, January, February, March, April. Let's say May. It'll be May 4th. Oh shoot. Well, it's gonna be May 4th up here. Sorry. May 4th. And then that would be today's date. What the heck? Sorry. There we go. October 4th. Okay, so now, and you can kind of go through this with your clients as you're kind of going over with them. 6 months is just kind of how I kind of present it, is that, hey, 6 months, because it might take you longer, might not. It just kind of saves us some paperwork later. And I just kind of leave it at that. Nobody ever gives me any kind of kickback on that. So, computation, a period of days, deadline. Most of the time it's will. If it lands on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, it will be extended to the next day that's not Saturday, Sunday, or holiday. It's all going to just depend on what your client's needs are. If there are a transfer here from out of state and they need to be done and in a home like ASAP, might want to do will not be extended, because what's going to happen is when you go to put a purchase contract on one of the houses that they like, you're going to probably try to do a 21-day close. So those deadlines are going to be very crucial. So we're not going to have time to extend anything for holidays, weekends, and everybody's going to have to know that and move very quickly. So depending on the situation, typically it is will. And here's the brokerage relationship. Prior to submitting this, um, I'll do that. I'll show you the definitions of working relationships. That's going to go over all this. So they should know all this prior to going over this particular buyer agency agreement here. So you can kind of roughly just go over that with them. The reason why would you click the buyer agency only? Some people want you just to have a fiduciary duty to them. Now, if you have a listing and that listing meets your buyer's criteria, if you have that box checked, then you just have to amend this contract in order to present that listing to them. There's also another contract that you would have to get signed by them if you were to go show them one of your properties. So always be transparent with everything that you're doing. Be upfront. Brokerage duties. It's basically, you're gonna, it's gonna be a timely manner. Basically just over exceed their expectations. They call you, answer it. If you can't answer it, if you're with a client, get back to them. Make sure your clients are aware that, hey, I give my clients when I'm with them, my full attention. If I don't answer you right away, I will call you right back. That is the most important. It really is, because the number one biggest complaint amongst realtors is communication. So when I started this business, I promised myself and my clients I give them exceptional communication. It's a huge purchase for them. One of the biggest assets they're going to probably buy in their whole life. Be there for them. Answer your phone. They'll love you forever, and you'll get many, many referrals. Getting stuff out in a timely manner, showing those properties, hit the market. You got to be willing and ready to jump. This market is hot. It moves very fast. So that's very important. Go over that stuff with your client too. Make them aware of your schedules. Hey, Thursdays is usually I have, football with my kids, or, Tuesdays isn't a good day, or, Saturday and Sunday I'm usually wide open and I have an extra day off. Let me know in advance if you want to see some of these properties if you can. But, that's going to be important. And you set yourself up, set your expectations with your clients, and it should go very smoothly. Um, and then additional duties there, you can kind of go over that. So here we go. Here's a very important part here. Success fee, brokerage firm will be paid as follow. You want to make sure you click that. And an amount fee equal to, now I do 2.5%. And why do I do that? Most of them are 2.8. And so the reason why I do 2.5, because some are 2.5. And if I'm putting an offer in on a property that has multiple offers, and they're only given 2.5, I have a buyer agreement with my client at 2.8, let's say, then I have to write that offer, and then in the additional provisions, I'd have to say, hey, I need 2.8%, or otherwise my client's going to have to come to the table with that 0.3%. You could also amend this contract if you wanted. It's totally up to you. I kind of leave it at that, just because I'm okay with it. If you're not, then you could put 2.8 and then fight for it, or when it came down to it, you could come to your buyer and request them come to the table with that additional 0.3%. Everything else is kind of, you could kind of do what you want to do. If you got some, I've heard some agents here like hourly fee for showing properties. You can set an hourly wage if you want. Our commissions are pretty good in our market. Our purchase prices are high. I feel it's just part of the business. Sometimes you'll show 50 houses and then they decide to rent. It's just kind of how it is. You just got to kind of run with it. Usually in that case, they send me referrals because they feel bad. So I don't take it for heart. I don't take it to heart. I just kind of keep going, do the best I can, and it always has paid off for me. So I don't do a retainer fee. I don't do hourly fee. Other compensations, you can have them pay for your transaction fee if you want. I've heard some agents be very successful with that. With that, ours are $300 with HomeSmart. I think it's $350 if you're non-realtor board. But when you get somebody to get that, then they're serious buyers as well. And that's what other agents that do ask for this to be paid. That's the response they get. They get a little bit of kickback, but not too much. Most of them give it to them. But then you have somebody that's very serious. Is not going to sit there and waste your time. So it could be very beneficial. I don't do it. I just give exceptional service, and I'll pay the $300. No big deal to me. Leases, we can't do leases with HomeSmart, so let's keep going. And then depending on which one here, so listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is obligated to pay. So that could be certain circumstances with the where I just expressed on the 2.5 as opposed to 2.8. Then you can say buyer will pay. It's not typical in our market. The seller unfortunately pays the buyer agent and the listing agent. So this is very typical in our market. Listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is not obligated to pay. And most of the time when you're running through this with your client, they're going to like to hear that. And they like for you to say that. They like to hear that. Because when I advertise, I am 100% free buyer agency for you, and that's what it means. So, okay, so holdover period. I typically do 90 days. Other agents do 120 days. It's just all personal preference. But essentially, I would start with whatever you're comfortable with, 90 days, and then they will be. And how I explain this is, when we go look at some houses and you see someone, they're looking on Zillow and they happen to see something that's foreclosed on or pre-foreclosure or for sale by owners, and a lot of them, they're trying to sell their house without an agent, right? So what do they want to do when you really like their house? They're gonna say, hey, well, why don't you go ahead and get rid of your agent and I'll give you $10,000 off the house, something like that. I'm not saying that they would do it or you would do that, but this is just to protect me, and anything that I show you that you, after listing our buyer agency terminates, if I showed you one of those houses and you put a contract on it within those 90 days after our buyer agreement expires, you will owe the brokerage firm that success fee. And that would be what we came up with above. That's the 2.5. Make sure that they really know about this. I was kind of a little hesitant at first to kind of try to explain that, but it's very important because, buyers can, they're online, they're looking at Realtor.com, they're looking at Redfin, they're looking on Zillow. Truly, they're looking at all those things. Even though you got them on a home search, they're looking through all those, they're clicking all those save buttons. They're probably asking for information. They probably on 5 different other agents' websites and their CRMs that are getting hit every single day. So don't assume that you're there by yourself. There's a million of us out there and we're all hungry. So they're all doing whatever they can. So just make sure you're explaining this to them. Okay, let's keep on going. Buyer's obligation to broker. This is just basically saying, hey, you are not currently a party to any agreement with any other broker and has not received a list of any submitted property pursuant to a previous listing agreement to purchase property with any other broker. You can say, hey, have you talked to any other agents? Yeah. Have you signed anything with any of them? And then that's what you want to say. Make sure it's clear because we don't want to be caught in doing sign crossing and all that stuff. Because what can happen is if they have a buyer agency with somebody else and they buy a house, what could happen? This comes back up. Boom, and then they guarantee they got this in there. So, just kind of always protect yourself and, really make it known. Brokerage services, you can put a list of things that you want to provide. And then there's some clauses here too you can kind of click on. So you can check out some of those. Those are the verbiages from actual attorneys. So, when it comes to that, that's where those would be. And then showing properties, due to such methods, brokers' limitations on assessing properties are as follows. And I usually put, by appointment only. So just but like I said, yeah, it's by appointment only. Make sure that we're giving our clients the service that they deserve. This market is very hot and moves very fast. If you can jump on it and get a jump on those other agents, that's how you can get your client's offer accepted over others. And I go over that in a different video where I can show you how to present your offer to the listing agent in the best way possible. Now, disclosure of buyer's identity. I usually click does. Broker does have the buyer's permission to disclose the buyer's identity to third parties without prior written consent of the buyer. So what does that mean? So that means when I'm going to present an offer for him, I can say, hey, John Doe, him and his family of 3 children, he's in the Navy. I'm able to give personal information to try to get his offer accepted over somebody else's. Now, an example of why somebody does not want to, I mean, could be personal, could be private, they could be, celebrity. There could be many reasons why they don't want to disclose their identity. In this market, it's pretty typical, and most likely with the clients that we're going to be in front of, you're going to want to have that access to explain to them. You want to work on all emotions with the listing agent to the seller. So it's going to be very important. Disclosure of settlement service costs, wire and other frauds. A lot of these things we're going to have separate contracts too once we get down into under contract. All the marketing material, buyer knows the marketing material used by the seller and the seller broker may be difficult, if not impossible. So this is basically saying when they buy a house, all that information that the listing agent, the seller, everybody has put out to market the crap out of it, this is where it comes back. It's going to be hard to kind of remove it. So it is going to be public record. A lot of those things are going to be out there on the internet. So not going to discriminate. Very important. There's protected classes here by the federal, state, and local law. But not limited to race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, familial status, physical or mental disability, handicap, religion, national origin, or ancestry of such person. When you're showing properties, you can get very comfortable with the buyers. Buyers are usually very happy, so just be cognizant of what you're saying. Political, this and that, certain things. Just keep it professional about yourself, professionalism. But still, also you can also still be yourself. But just kind of make sure you're aware of some of the things that might betray something other than what it is. And then this is very, very important. Recommendation of legal and tax counsel. Once I show this and I go through this, I'll say, hey, well, this is by signing this, buyer acknowledges that the broker has advised that this document has important legal consequences and has recommended consultation with legal or tax or other counsel before signing this buyer listing agreement. This is binding. This is definitely you can definitely come after them for this, especially when you're talking about large amounts of money. Like in the holdover period here, let's say they default and go with a different agent, don't tell you got a buyer agreement, and they go buy a house. Let's say it's $500,000, and 2.8% of that is $14,000. So Okay, so and then mediation. If anything arises between me and the buyer, that we would have a mediation first, and not that you have to, but it's highly suggested that the mediation go forth. That just doesn't tie up you or me, and you can move on, I can move on. Is kind of the idea. Additional provisions. I always put this is just me. I put if you are not fine with my service, you can fire me at any time with written notice. This is definitely not something anybody else uses. Most likely, I'm probably one of the few. I don't really care because I know that I'm going to exceed their expectations. I know that they will not leave me, and plus they got to give me a written notice. So they're gonna have to tell me, and they're gonna have to say, "Hey, I don't want to." They have to give me an excuse. This kind of pushes me too because at the same time, it keeps me on my toes. I want to make sure that they're taken care of to the best that I can, my best ability, and that's what they deserve. Especially first time home buyers. Anybody, but first time home buyers, they're gonna need a lot more coaching. You're gonna need a lot more time. You're gonna need to explain a lot more stuff. You gotta be there for them. You gotta explain this stuff to them. Um, you know, I have no reason to not put this in here, and it kind of makes this whole contract a lot easier for them. I never had anybody kick back on any ever on my buyer agency. I get them every single time, and I've had nobody ever fire me. So, just a little something I do. You don't have to do it, but and then attachments to filing are part of this buyer agreement contract. You can add certain things. There's a bunch of docs here. Um, Usually definition of working relationships. You would click this here, and then what we'll do is I'll show you here in a second too. It's not really part of the contract because this isn't a contract, but you can just state that before they've seen this, you should have presented the definitions of working relationships with prior to them anyway. So, yeah, you can add that there, and then I always just put CTME because that's going to be all the signature software that I use and that they're going to get from me. But anything basically on the internet, you can put internet there, CTME, any of that kind of stuff there, electronic form. Because everything nowadays is all online. Okay, depending on your different loan types, so you'll see right here, what's this web signature? I like to just take the web initials off. Some lenders may require it. I haven't got anybody kick me back on this, but what that means is they'll have a signature box and then they'll have an initial box, and it's super annoying because your buyers and the sellers and all that, they'll sign the main box, but they forget the stupid initials. So it just makes it easier, looks cleaner. If your lender comes at you, the reason why the initials are going to be there, the initials are going to go on the original PDF print, and they're going to be on the bottom of every single page, essentially. So some might require it. I've never came across it, but that's what that's for. I like to just kind of take that off. So yeah, so basically once we do that, you make sure your name and all that stuff is here. It should be there, and then you're going to save it. So now when you save it, now, when we want to look through it, go to print preview, okay? This is the way that they're going to see it. So this is the way you want to look it over, okay? So you want the date, okay, you got buyer agency, and the boxes look like they're checked too. It's easier to kind of notice stuff. You usually notice boxes that aren't checked or whatnot. Here's John Doe. There's my name, looks good. The agreement time there looks good. Okay, the will is checked. We'll just keep on cruising. That's good. I don't want to have that checked personally in case I have a listing that I want to present to them. Then we'll just keep on cruising here. Look for anything that's been checked or blue. That's stuff that's been added or altered. So we got success fees clicked. That's important. And then we got the amount there, 2.5. And then there could be a number here. Depends on, that's usually for lower price properties. Let's just keep on going here. Everything should automatically auto-populate NA as well. So NA, as you click save, it throws in NAs and all those blanks. So don't worry about when you're filling it out, throwing in those NAs. It'll automatically do it for you. And we can't do we're not doing any of these. Okay, then we got the listing brokerage firm. Seller may not pay. Good. 90 days. Will. Good. Buyer's obligation to broker is not and has not. Okay, good. And then by appointment only. And then disclosure of buyer's identity does. Perfect. If you are not satisfied with my services, you can fire me anytime with written notice. Perfect. Definition of working relationships. Okay. And electronic notice, boom. Okay, so this is the important part. So once you get down to here, you want to make sure that your buyer signature came up, which it did, and then yours is here. Do not sign it until you present it to your buyer. Have them sign first. If you have to make any corrections, you can live right there with them on the spot. At least you got most of it already done. You can kind of just say, oh, well, I don't want to do the 90 days. They're going to negotiate with you maybe. Never had anybody do it, but um, yeah, so that's basically the basics on the buyer agency exclusive right to buy listing contract. Now, while we're here, I want to throw in. So now that you get the parent contract here, now you can do um, the buyer definitions of working relationships because you got a parent contract. So now that you've done that other one, look what happens when you do this now. So you click definition of working relationships, boom. So now look, it auto populates John's name already for you. So essentially this is the easy one. So you'll just put today's date, whatever the date might be. Today's the 4th. I'm doing this, 2020. And then you'll put, the date there too. Here. With this document via elect delivery, and then that's it. Then we're going to save it. We're going to double check it again. Always check it. So it's got John Doe's here because this is what it's going to look like when you give it to them. So it's very important to always click on print preview. And then this is essentially, I'll kind of just go over this real quick for you. I run this down before I give them the buyer agency so they're understanding why I'm doing a buyer agreement. So it alleviates their stress or their concerns about what the buyer agreement is, because some people are like, don't ever sign anything with an agent. Well, it's important because they're going to want you to represent them to the fullest. Without the buyer agreement, I can't tell you anything that I think. I can't tell you, if it's a good deal. I can't negotiate on your behalf. I'm just there to referee you. So essentially, transaction broker without this contract, without the buyer agreement, essentially the client's just automatically a transaction broker or a customer. So there's no fiduciary duty there at all. So now when you get the buyer agreement signed, now I'm your buyer agent. I have a fiduciary duty to you. I can negotiate on your behalf. I explain everything. You want me to represent you. I am here for you. I'm here to protect you, get you the best price for that house. The seller's agent is looking out for their seller, and they're trying to get the highest prices they possibly can for that house, right? Buyer agent's trying to get the lowest price for you with the best terms. So that's a quick little rundown on these, and yeah. So we got definitions of working relationships, and then we got a buyer agency agreement.